Hi, here's May and welcome to this video, which will be some tips for Krita. I've been using Krita for 2 years now. It's the only software I've really drawn digitally with, and over time I learned some things that made my process a lot faster, and I thought I'd share them in this video. And for many of these tips to really make your drawing process quicker, it's good to limit your options, meaning that you can make quicker decisions. And yeah, for the first 3 tips, they will focus on this. And the first tip would be to have a limited amount of brushes generally. It's first good to test out lots of brushes and then decide on a few you want to use. You can also save your own collections of brushes, but yeah, this is the one I always use, and I don't even use most of these brushes. I have this one brush I use for line art, which has some varying line thickness and also line opacity. And then I have this brush which I use to sketch. For shading I also use the airbrush sometimes, and for the erasers I also use this one, just a general eraser, which would, if I just draw something, this one would just erase like this, not really having any change of opacity. And this one would have some changing opacity. What I would also sometimes use is the blender here. But yeah, I just went through all of the brushes in the brush presets and picked the ones I still want to use, so I don't get overwhelmed with when you have all of the brushes. It's just can be very overwhelming. That's it for the first tip. And then the second one is to make use of the color palette Docker, which you can see here. And this made my process a lot faster really, since I limit myself in my color choices this way, and I already have some palettes that I know work together. For example, I'm gonna show you some of the palettes I saved. And this one was based off some of my OCs, and I have some of the color schemes of them here. But then, as you can see, it's not super organized, but I also have some other colors included in here. This, for example, would be some blush colors. I also wouldn't, when you draw something white, you normally don't just use straight up white, and you'd rather use some tone. And for these colors you can tell that they are all rather cool, which is also limiting your color scheme can work just to go in one hue. This is an older palette. You can see here's a rainbow included basically, and for example for Genshin Impact I have 3 different palettes. I think these ones are where I color picked from some images. These ones are just a collection of basically many other palettes I used. And I also have some others. But going through these colors when you want to color something, instead of being here and having the option to go for any color, just can make your process a lot faster. And the third tip would be to organize your workspace in a way that you have quick access to all the tools you need. You can already see I have my brushes and my palette down here, and I also have the recorder Docker here, since I often record my speed paints. Up here I have my layers, which I think almost any artist would have the layer Docker somewhere. Then the overview, which is always good if you are currently zoomed in and can just zoom out. This one is also very helpful. This will also be a tip, this Docker. And this is just if you want to play around with some hues. And you can find all these different Dockers here. You can see I don't have all of them turned on. And for example, if I would animate something, I would bring up this Docker, and you can already see when I animate it, I put it down here. I like to have my canvas on the left side here, but you can do this however you want to. Go through these Dockers and then figure out what you want to use. For the fourth tip, this will be the tool options, because they are one of the features that really help me the most, and it's very versatile depending on which tool you currently have selected. For example, I currently have the brush selected. If I now go a layer, you can see I have the brush. Maybe I will go for color that you can see better. But yeah, this is the stabilizer, which especially when doing line art, I always have my stabilizer at 99. This is of course dependent on your tablet. After the brush tool, you can also go for the selection tools, which would be down here, or you can, if you have them assigned to shortcuts, you can also access them in a different way. But with the selection tool, you can choose if you want to just select from the current layer or all layers. Currently it's from all my layers, and this is also very helpful, the selection mask, when you have the selection tool. And like this you can change up your selection. And for the tool options here, where with the magic wand you can change the shrink selection, which helps me a lot. So what I used to do was I would not have this docker on and I wouldn't see these options, but I would just select this, and then you can see that it's most of the time not completely. For example, if I would want to fill the skin color, there's always this small gap, and I would go to select, grow selection 1 pixel, and this always takes a little time. Instead, if you just have this selected in the beginning, it's automatically selecting with 1 pixel further, or even you can go for even more if you want to. Yeah. For the other selection tools as well, there are different selection modes you can go for, and I also find this very helpful if I, for example, want to do some shadows or something like that. I would select an area, and then I'm like, maybe, oh, I want to change it up, and this is the subtract mode, the add mode, and yeah, some other modes. That's it for the tool options, and next I'll go to the transform tool itself. It's when I, for example, have some pattern I want to be on something. When you have the transform tool selected, for me it's when I do the right mouse click, then you have these different transform tool action options. The first one is the free transform tool, which you can just play around with the sizing and so on, but then you can also do this, which is sharing, I think. And then you can also use the perspective transform option to have your object be in some weird perspective, which is very helpful when you have an object like a box and you just want this object to be on this box as a pattern, for example, or on the hair here. If I would go to the perspective tool and put it into the around the correct perspective. These other options, the only one I really use is the mesh one, because with this one you can also make some things rounded. I don't really use the other transform options. This is one of the most helpful tools for me, especially in the sketching phase when I quickly want to adjust something. The final tip will be the most important one to me, which is the keyboard shortcuts. You can manually set up your keyboard shortcuts if you go to Configure Krita, and then you go to Keyboard Shortcuts. And here, for example, if I would go to Undo, you can see I have it as Z. It initially was at Control Z, but yeah, just pressing Z is way quicker and not as hard on my hand. So I just changed it up to this, and you can do this for so many other options. But I will blend in the shortcuts I use now. For example, mirroring is also very important when you draw digitally, and just having quick access to this, especially when you draw faces, is very important. That's it for the final tip, but now for a small bonus tip, which I just found very cool, since one day I wanted to draw a necklace, and yeah, I didn't want to do this with the many pearls of the necklace. So what I would do is go here to the brush editor, and then you can change up the spacing of your brush, for example like this, and now you have this kind of brush, and you could do a necklace, do some earring. You can apply this to other brushes as well, of course, and add some cool details. But that's just a small bonus tip, and those were my 6 tips for drawing faster in Krita. Maybe I also come up with some more tips in the future, since while using a software you always learn something new over time, but in the beginning especially just getting used to the drawing software can be quite hard, but with time you will get better and improve the speed you're working on. So I hope this was helpful to you, and yeah, you can also leave some other tips you have in the comments if you want to. I hope you enjoyed the video and have a great day. Goodbye.